Welcome to this video on office procedures based on the Manual of Office Procedures 2010, revised and updated by the Nagaland Civil Secretariat. This video will address the file numbering system. In the video, we will look at two types of file numbering systems: cases where files need not be opened, file register, part file, the transfer, reconstruction, and renumbering of files, movement of files and other papers, filing system under branch pattern. Let's begin with first looking at the two types of file numbering systems. The first one is the functional file numbering system, and the second, a file numbering system based on subject classification. Let's begin with the functional file numbering system. In this system, the range and dimensions of the subjects falling under the scope of business allocated to a department are analyzed in the following sequence: the main functions of the department, the activities in each of these functions, the aspects or operations involved in each of these activities, and the factors to be taken into consideration relating to each of these aspects or operations. The scope of business of a department is thus analyzed under four hierarchical divisions, and accordingly, the following four standard lists of headings are prepared. First, functional heads, which may be called basic heads. Second, activity heads, which may be called primary heads as related to each functional head. Third, aspect or operation heads, which may be called secondary heads as related to activity heads. And fourth, factor heads, which may be called tertiary heads as related to aspects of operation heads. For opening files relating to establishment, finance, budget, and accounts, office supplies and services, and other housekeeping jobs common to all departments, the standardized functional file index, including its file numbering system, issued by the Department of Personnel and Administrative Reforms, will be followed. Let's now look at the file numbering system based on subject classification. Each section will maintain approved lists of standard heads, that is, main subject headings concerning it, and standard subheads, that is, aspects of the main subject headings. The standard heads will bear consecutive serial numbers. No such numbers, however, will be allotted to standard subheads. The lists of standard heads and subheads will be reviewed at the beginning of each year and revised, if necessary, with the approval of the branch officer concerned. The serial numbers once allotted to the standard heads should not ordinarily be changed. Before opening a new file, the dealing hand will ascertain the standard head to which the paper under consideration relates. He will then propose a suitable title of the file for the approval of the section officer. The title will consist of standard head, subhead, which will be more indicative of the precise subject than the head, and a brief content indicating the question or issue under consideration in relation to the standard head and subhead, and where necessary, the specific institution, person, place, or thing involved. The title should be as brief as possible, but should give at a glance sufficient indication of the contents of the file so as to serve as an aid to its identification. It should be articulated, that is, broken up into components, each consisting of the minimum possible substantive words and expressing an element in the subject matter. Each part will begin with a capital letter and will be separated from the preceding one by a bold dash. As far as possible, there should be a separate file for each distinct aspect of the subject. The title of a file should not be couched in general or wide terms, which might attract large number of receipts on different aspects of the matter, thereby making the file unwieldy. If the issue raised in a fresh receipt or in the note on a current file goes beyond the original scope, a new file may be opened to deal with it after placing the relevant extracts or copies thereon. Every file will be assigned a file number which will consist of the serial number allotted to the standard head, the serial number of the file opened during the year under the standard head, the year of opening the file with all four digits, that is 2008 or 2000, etc., and an abbreviated symbol identifying the section. The first three elements in the file number will be separated from one another by a slant stroke and the last two by a dash. Thus, files opened in, say, PNR department during 2009 under the standard head bearing serial number 3 will be numbered consecutively as 3 stroke 1 stroke 2008 PAR, comma 3 stroke 2 stroke 2009 PAR, and so on, where PAR represents the department. In a computer environment, file numbering will be done electronically in either of the systems mentioned in paras 92 and 93 of this chapter in the manual. A unique file number will be automatically generated whenever a fresh file is opened. We will now look at cases where file need not be opened. Normally, no new files will be opened for dealing with receipts of a purely routine nature. For example, requests for supply of unclassified factual information, notices of holidays, miscellaneous circulars, which can be disposed of straight away by noting the reply on the source receipts and returning them to the originators, or are unlikely to generate further correspondence and therefore can be placed in a miscellaneous file to be destroyed at the end of the year or placed in the folder of circulars, etc., if on the subject. Let's now move on to file register. A record of files opened during a calendar year will be kept in a file register. Refer to Appendix 21 in the manual. This is to be maintained by the diarist. A list of approved standard heads along with the serial numbers identifying them should be pasted at the beginning of the register. The pages allotted to the standard heads in the registers should also be indicated against each. Electronic file register will also be maintained in a computer environment. We now move on to part file. If the main file on a subject is not likely to be available for some time and it is necessary to process a fresh receipt or a note Without waiting for its return, a part file may be opened to deal with it. This device may also be resorted to where it is desired to consult simultaneously two or more sections or officers, and it is necessary for each of them to see the receipt noted upon. A part file will normally consist of receipt or note dealt with and notes relating thereto. Where two or more part files are opened, each will be identified by a distinct number, example part file 1, part file 2, and so on. A part file will be merged with the main file as soon as possible, duplicate papers, if any, being removed. Appropriate electronic entry for opening a part file will be made in a computer environment so that easy tracking is facilitated for the purpose of merging of the part file with the main file on its return. We now look at transfer, reconstruction, and renumbering. Whenever work is transferred from one department to another, the former will promptly transfer all the related records, including files, both current and closed, to the latter. The department taking over the records will not divide, reclassify, or renumber the closed files transferred to it. In the case of current files, the endeavor should be to close them at the earliest possible stage and to open new files according to the department's own scheme of classification for dealing with the matter further. A file will be reconstructed if it is misplaced. The file number and the subject will be obtained from the file register, and the copies of correspondence will be sought from the corresponding department. On receipt of all such papers, they will be arranged in chronological order on the file, and a self contained note will be prepared on the basis of the copies of correspondence and placed on the notes portion of the reconstructed file. We'll now look at movements of file and other papers. Movement of files will be entered in the file movement register as shown in Appendix 22 of the Manual of Office Procedures. When current files are linked, as per para 43 in this chapter, the movement of the linked files will be marked in the space allotted in the file movement register for the file with which these are linked, and also individually in the space allotted in the file movement register for each of the linked files in the manner illustrated in notes 2 and 3 under Appendix 22 in the Manual of Office Procedures. When recorded, files are put up with a file. The movement of the recorded files will be marked in the space allotted in the file movement register for the file with which these are put up in the manner illustrated in note 4 under the appendix 22 in the manual. It will also be ensured that the procedure regarding requisitioning of recorded files, as laid down in para 115 in the manual, is observed. Movement of files received from other departments or branches and other receipts which have not been brought onto a file in the receiving branch will be noted in the remarks column of the branch diary. No current file will be issued to other branch except against written requisition and after marking its movement in the file movement register. Files and other papers marked by the Under Secretary to other officers, branches, or departments will be routed through the branch for noting their movement. When the files are handed over personally by the Under Secretary to other officers, He will inform the section officer accordingly, who will ensure that the movement of such files is marked in the file movement register. The personal staff of officers of the rank of Under Secretary and above will maintain the movement of papers received by their officers in the respective personal branch diary, as shown in Appendix 4 of the manual. Movement of any file handed over personally to a higher officer or to the minister will similarly be noted by the personal staff. Papers or files marked by them to other departments, however, will be routed through the branch concerned for noting their movements in the file movement register or branch diary as appropriate. In a computer environment, the movement of files will be recorded electronically at every stage. We'll finally look at the filing system under branch pattern. The provisions of para 92 to 98 will also be applicable to the branch pattern of functioning. Assistant or stenographer attached to a branch functionary will assist him in maintaining a proper filing system and movement of files. Thank you for watching this video on office procedures based on the Manual of Office Procedures 2010, revised and updated by the Nagaland Civil Secretariat.